A Milhouse Divided is definitely a really interesting episode of The Simpsons. Interesting in its own, but also because of the many episodes that happen thereafter. Because I guess I won't go into detail about what happens in this episode, but it's important because it impacts a lot of episodes afterwards, at least episodes that involve Milhouse. This is the sixth episode of the eighth season of The Simpsons, directed by Stephen Dean Moore, and it aired originally in December 1996. And in this episode, there's a dinner party at The Simpsons' house, and it doesn't exactly go to plan because Luann van Houten ends up asking for a divorce from her husband, from Kirk. And it looks like Milhouse is about to become a child from a broken home. And it's a very important topic, and I think the episodes that follow in particular really address that very well. I don't know. I'm season 13, and I don't really think there's been an episode so far that's just about this. But we see Milhouse in different situations. Over the time, we see Luann and Kirk in different situations. And it allows the show to address quite a serious topic of children with parents, particularly divorced parents who are maybe feuding with each other, or at least Luann's feuding with Kirk. They have very different responses to this discussion about divorce. Well, it's kind of one side of it, and I think that's really important because it shapes a lot of Milhouse's stories thereafter. But we also have Homer questioning the integrity of his own marriage and whether or not he is behaving right, because we see Luann saying all of these horrible things about Kirk, and Kirk spits back as well, saying you don't do this, you do this, really getting at each other, and Homer begins to think, maybe I'm not a good husband. What should I do? And it takes a really interesting direction as we see Homer actually thinking about his actions, because Marge is a mother and a housewife, and 9 out of 10 episodes show her being nothing else. And when there are episodes specifically about her, they're always saying, hey, she's not just a mother and a housewife. There is more to her. But Homer is partly responsible for her coming across that way, because he lets her wait on him hand and foot and doesn't necessarily, as we the viewers see, give her the attention she deserves. And Homer begins to realise this. I think it can be an eye-opening episode for anybody watching it if you're in a relationship, just to ask yourself, am I doing my fair share? Am I treating my partner the way they want to be treated? For couples going through divorce, it can also say, hey, maybe don't use your child as a pawn, don't shout in front of your children. And if you're a child watching it and your parents are going through a divorce, then, or, they're feuding and you can see that their marriage is on the rocks, yeah, maybe you can take some comfort in Milhouse. Milhouse, I think, is a brilliant character. He always makes me smile. It always makes me feel better about myself, to be honest. But I think this is a really solid episode. I think it tackles some important messages or some important concepts, and delivers them very well. It's funny, of course. There are comedic moments. It wouldn't be The Simpsons if it wasn't. But I think the comedy is definitely against the backdrop of some important social subjects that it handles very well, that it continues to handle very well in the episodes that follow. And I definitely think A Milhouse Divided is a real credit to Season 8.